Well, who would have thought this? The eighth wonder of the world, our 81-year-old President Joe Biden, is not a big hit with today's crop of young, hip influencers. Gen Z content creators who supported Biden in 2020 are reportedly turning against him, citing Israel's war on Hamas, a lack of progress on climate change, and a potential TikTok ban. So can Joe win them back? Maybe it's just time to deploy the secret weapon.
So the importance of community banks is they are, as they are called, they're in the community, led by members of the community. I'm going to tell you, I love Gen Z. I really do.
But as Joe Biden bombs with influencers, they're flocking to Donald Trump, the former president, getting interviewed by Logan Paul on his popular podcast.
There's something happening. There are unidentified aerial phenomena in the sky. We don't know what they are. Do you?
So it's such a question I do get a lot, and it's such an interesting question. Am I a believer? No, I can't say I am. But I have met with people that are serious people that say there's some really strange things that they see flying around out there.
Is this your mugshot?
Yeah, can you believe it? Biden is just so bad. He is so bad. He is the worst president in the history of our country. So that helps too.
You should make a diss track on him.
Yeah, we'll do something. Yeah. We'll do something.
So, Jesse, as an influencer in your own right, what is your analysis of these influencers basically saying Biden's not left-wing enough and that you basically have to be pro-terrorism for them to get his vote?
So the media's fractured recently. It's kind of gone in different directions, and Trump's picked up on that. And so you used to be able to just do networks, Fox News, and that was it. Maybe talk radio. Now it's splintered, and he's doing podcasts that people a couple years ago would have been like, what? And now he's doing Logan Paul, he's done Nelk Boys, he's done Candace, Timcast, and he's getting to an audience that usually doesn't pick up on political news, and that's smart. And then he does free things, like goes to UFC fights, which is just free media. And then he starts talking about Bitcoin. Again, you're tapping into a different demographic, and people start thinking like, whoa, wow, okay, let me listen to this guy. Joe Biden is still stuck in the 90s where George Clooney and Julia Roberts, that kind of endorsement, Jeffrey Katzenberg, it worked back then, but it's not cool anymore. And if you look what Joe Biden tried to do, the only thing he tried was Howard. Mm-hmm. And the rest is CNN, NBC. And so he's really just kind of stuck in an old school media landscape and hasn't been able to break through it. And not to mention the fact that his policies are just terrible. If you're young, you just don't have the upward mobility that you used to have in this country. And that's really what it's all about.
So, Greg, the leftist media has tried to erase this from Trump's record, but he's been a master of the culture since he's been on the scene. Mm-hmm. So this is just an extension of that in the new age of different kinds of media.
Well, you know what? I still maintain it's not about youth. It's not about race. It's about gender. What you're seeing is a shift in men realizing that the Democratic Party is not a party for men because the so-called phony empathy that they're pushing has led to an increase in crime and a dissolution of our border. And I think men watch that and just see, wow, this is a weak party. It's morally weak. There's a lack of objective understanding of incentives and justice. Right now, men in the media men in the Democratic Party are feeling like they're stuck in some emotional primal therapy of white ladies finding their identity in self-flagellation. And they're like, you know what? I'm getting the hell out of here. Now, I remember, as the election season ramped up, you would hear moderates saying, we're not pleased by either choices, whether it's Biden or it's Trump. Cool. We got that. But the Republicans actually did something about it. They stress tested Trump with decent alternatives, DeSantis, Haley, Vivek. But Trump ended up winning. He won. The Dems didn't do that. They doubled down on dementia. They put all their eggs in one awful choice, hoping that they could mine January 6th forever. And it failed. It failed. It failed. Again, Republicans did the work while the Dems kind of like created a moat around Biden to keep away actual challengers. And now they're stuck with this guy. And I'm going to repeat what I said yesterday. You got to reconsider your choice, because if you somehow pull this out with some kind of shenanigans, I hate to use that word so lightly, but shenanigans, you're going to deal with a public who doesn't buy the election. You know, they're gonna go like, how did that win?
Don't point at me.
How did that? No, I'm pointing at Biden. It's because we got it up. How did that win? We don't buy it. You're gonna have to deal with that.
So, Harold, you can respond to the accusation that the Democratic Party is not the place for men. But overall, is Biden just trying too hard to be hip and cool, whereas Trump's kind of in his natural element, doing the podcasting with the influencers and going to UFC?
I'm a proud guy, and I don't know. I think there's some merit in some of the things that Greg said. A lot of things that he said.
Thank you.
I look at this
later.
not differently, but I think about this. Biden is leading amongst voters 65 and older by 12 points. That's normally a province that Republicans enjoy. In the last 50 years, Republicans have won that share of the American voting public every time except 3. The polling suggests that lower drug costs is the most prominent reason why some in that age group, or the majority of that age group, are favoring Biden. When you also look at that data, as I think we could all agree, this is not Democratic talking points. Older voters vote more than younger voters. Mm-hmm. And when you really pull it out and you look at the states and the Commonwealths that matter the most in this election, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, older voters generally vote more. 2, I look forward to this debate between the two of them, because I think this could really reshape the dynamic of the race in favor of one of them. And I think it will have implications for what happens at these conventions, and could very well have implications for what and how former President Trump thinks about a running mate. I do hope they're asked very specific questions about where they would take the country. I think the judges were right at the end of her first segment. I said what I said. You said, you know what? President Trump is accountable for his words. I want both of them to be held accountable. How will you lower grocery prices? How will you lower food prices? I mean, food prices or grocery prices. How would you lower gas prices and electronics? Remember, June 27th is 5 to 6 weeks before half the schools in America start. And that will be on parents' minds. Will you keep us in NATO? Will you support Ukraine in its effort to beat Russia, or Putin rather? And when would you stop that? And finally, are you committed to keeping abortion legal and safe in the country? I want to hear their answers. We can look. I respect whatever your answer is, but I think the country should know what their answers are. And if those answers are not sufficient, we all have our biases in the race, but we can all be honest. If those answers are not sufficient, I think they will be reflected in the polls. So it's still early. That number with the older voters could flip to Republican, and a number for younger voters could flip to Democrats. But as of right now, Katie, your question presupposes something that's right. Whatever Joe Biden's doing is not working totally with younger voters yet.
Judge.
The sad part of all this is that we have a sitting president, and we should know the answer to all those questions, because Joe Biden has the bully pulpit. He has the ability to tell the American people now where he stands on these issues. Is he doing it? No, he's not capable of speaking. He goes out to with the G7, and he's walking away looking at people who are skydiving or whatever they're doing, and they have to pull him back and say, Mr. President, over here. The man's on another planet. So when Charlemagne the God says, you know, we want a politician who talks like real people. This isn't about, you know, they want this issue or that issue. I mean, we've known historically, people vote for someone they like, someone that they connect with. The young people, if anything, are exquisitely sensitive to the frailties of the elders. And they don't want to be gaslit by someone saying Bidenomics is great. These people can't afford a house. They can't afford to buy a car. They can't afford groceries. And forget about savings. They don't have savings. So, you know, it's not about all of these, you know, we've got to have a discussion about what they really feel about policy. I want a guy there that I feel is fighting for me. So Joe Biden is not the real person that Charlemagne the God is talking about. Joe Biden's been on TikTok for what, 5 months? Donald Trump went on in one day and has surpassed the number of followers that Joe Biden has. And Joe Biden is hiring the TikTok influencers. He's always talking about it. It's because Donald Trump is real. Donald Trump is someone you could relate to. He's genuine. He's not full of crap. You don't hear the politics intervening when he's answering a question. Let me just point out a couple other things. In 2016, Hillary beat, she won the young votes by 19 points. In 2020, Biden won by 24 points. Right now, what has changed? Why is Donald Trump ahead? What's changed is they're tired of being gaslit, and they know they don't have a future. They know that somebody telling them everything is great doesn't help them, and they got to force the fact that their economic dreams are not going to be attained while this guy's stumping around, bumbling around, and they can't make it.
Okay.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.